All right, viewers, you're welcome to this episode of Positive Alteration School. Now, for those who are joining us for the first time, the essence of this program is for us to spread the message about communication and public speaking and how it can really help us in different facets of our lives, no matter where you are. And so, what we're doing is to bring different people from different walks of life to share their experience, how communication and paying attention to public speaking has helped them. And I hope that this episode really serves you. So today on the show, I have Jonathan Waters. He is a father, a loving husband, and he's here to share his experience, how he's been, what's been happening in his life, and basically how public speaking and communication have been uh, helpful to him. So Jonathan, you're welcome.
How you doing?
I am good, John. Okay, great. So, John, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
So I'm 46 and stay in the suburbs of Glasgow. I would say that I've been working the last 24 years, nearly 25 years in the public sector in law enforcement. And I would say that in terms of public speaking, it was only probably in the last 8 years that I've actually started thinking about it. and actually trying to improve my communication skills, and it's reaped massive rewards.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Now, I'm going to ask you, John, what led you to pursue this current career path as a law enforcement person, What moved you to pursue that path?
I came out of university and I was thinking, what am I going to do? I really didn't have an idea of. I looked through the university magazine and it had all these occupations from McDonald's to working in retail and doing a graduate program. And then I applied for a number of jobs, never got anywhere. And then I thought, you know what? I fancy I'll just apply for the law enforcement and see what happens. And then it was never an idea that I wanted to get into it. And quite honest, some days probably like most people, when you get into a career, sometimes you go through days where you think, have I chosen the right path here? And then, but most days I would say it's given me a steady income. It's given me peace of mind in terms of job security, and
Mhm.
also it means I can move around different areas, and there's loads of areas that I can improve.
Beautiful. Of what you said, I love the bit where you said gives you peace of mind, especially when it comes to job security. But how has it been to us? But how do you, I know you mentioned that gives you peace of mind, but overall, how do you feel about the choice you've made?
If I was to be my younger self, get transported back in time, I'm not sure if I would definitely take the same path. But I think you invest so many years in it, and you invest so many years, you build up the knowledge, and also you build up your pension in this particular area, and then you're almost
Mm,
kind of, to a certain extent, feel as if you're locked in a little bit.
okay.
So you have to make the most of it. And the good thing is, I could probably retire fairly early. I could probably retire in about five, 4 or 5 years if I go at the earliest stage, and then I can go into a second career. So that's the beauty of it.
Okay, that's good. So, where you are seated, John, is there a way you can move the camera away from you a little bit because we can just see your head? Especially, yes, this is a lot better if we can see. Yes, no, you need to move it. Good, good. Again, yeah, this is better now, so that we can see your shoulder, especially for purposes of I have seen you before. I see you almost every other week, so but for our viewers to have a better view of who is sharing with them today. Thank you very much. So I want to ask you in terms of your career, would you say, there are, what milestones would you say? I look back and I said, these are some things that I have achieved pursuing this career as a law enforcement person that I'm proud of. If I look back, I'll say, yeah.
I think just getting through the initial phase, it's probably the initial phase where you just get used to it. You get into that mindset that you actually want to, I know it sounds a bit cheesy, but make a difference. And you have to get in the mindset as well that a lot of people don't like you. And maybe when you're out there that they're in this, they've got this mindset where they don't like authority and you're going to
Yeah.
come across challenges. So once you get that and you enjoy catching people that they're up to no good, then that's the initial phase. And then for years I was just officer on the ground. And that was probably the best phase of my career. But since I've been promoted
Okay.
a couple of times in the police, they've moved on to different phases. So now a vast majority of my time is taken up with line management responsibilities. So that enters a whole new different arena, whether that's human resources, welfare, looking after people. So you build more skills along the way, and that's where the public speaking certainly comes into play.
I was going to people to that point when you said a lot of things. You are in a line management role now where you've got human resources, people management, engagement, and all of that they come to play. A question I wanted to ask, you just led me there, is how has public speaking helped you? Communication is a key thing. I mentioned it a couple of days ago. I was talking to a few persons where I said that I remember John Maxwell would say that influence is leadership, or leadership is influence. And communication plays a very important role. So I'd like to find out from you, how has communication, public speaking helped you in your role, in your corporate leadership role, if you like, that you occupy at the moment?
So I think there's two things to consider. First thing is the soft skills. So even in line management responsibilities where you're having a difficult, challenging, or sensitive conversation with someone, having the vocabulary, having the being sensitive, and having the basic practice, just practicing those conversations, then makes a massive difference. And I think the public speaking as well, it makes you think on your feet. It makes you think about what words you're using, and those are transferable skills. The other thing is when doing briefings. So I've done briefings in lecture theatres. I've done briefings in football stadiums. I've even been to the Scottish Parliament. And the public, if it hadn't been for practicing at Toastmasters, then I would have never felt comfortable doing any of those things. So having this path of trying to improve, I'm still in the path of obviously trying to improve my skills, but it's led to me feeling so much more confident.
So just so that we get this clear, you have spoken, you have given a briefing at the football stadium. You've even been to the Scottish Parliament. And these are places that when you see the number of people there, or in some cases, the caliber of people there, it could sometimes be frightening. But you are saying that your ability, your communication skills, and the fact that you've developed yourself in terms of communication and public speaking has helped you to thrive in those circumstances. Correct?
Correct. Without the practice, without the coaching, without looking up to my peers in public speaking, then none of that would have been possible.
Beautiful. I want to ask you, have you ever met people with misconceptions about public speaking? I give you example. I give you an example before you go on. Or let me let you flow. Have you met people?
So, sorry, just repeat the question. Sorry.
Yeah, so okay, so let me give you an example. So I laid the foundation. I've been in the gym before, and I was talking about the public speaking program. And the person I was speaking to said to me, Stallone, I'm an extrovert, I can talk, so I don't think I need any public speaking training. For me, I feel that's a misconception because communication, public speaking is a lot different from the fact that you can spit out words. There's an art of speaking, there's a science behind getting the message across. So have you met people with some misconceptions, and what misconceptions do you think people out there have about public speaking?
I think the main thing is that people think sometimes that you can get, as you said, if you're really super confident, then you don't need any training. You don't need any mentorship or anything. But that doesn't I don't think that does that person any good, because the whole skill of reading an audience is something that I hadn't really considered before. But you can tell when the audience is lost. You can tell when you've maybe lost the room. And sometimes
Mhm.
even at work, I notice that I've lost the room, but I just have to press ahead because there's a difficult message to pass. But reading the room, a lot of people without that skip that those practice sessions at Toastmasters or any in another arena, you wouldn't be able to read
Mhm.
the room, and you could even do, if you're trying to sell a message, it could go down so badly wrong without those practice sessions.
True, true. I want to bring an example. It's like the phone, right? If you're making a call, for instance, we're talking now. This is a Zoom call. This is we're having this conversation via Zoom, right? The moment if there's a network challenge and the connection goes up, we're lost. We can't keep talking. You can't keep talking from where you are because you won't be talking to me, and I can be doing the same thing. I'll have to wait for us to get connected. The same way if it's the phone, we're talking on the phone and it goes boom boom, you just feel, are you still there? Because you want to be sure we're still connected. That brings us back to what you said about losing the room. When you lose the room, you're disconnected. So if I follow up to what you're saying, it means training yourself or developing yourself and growing your public speaking skills. One of the things that process helps you to achieve is to know when you've lost the room, is to know when you're disconnected and see how you can reconnect. It doesn't mean that because you can talk and you can speak out words that you can read the room. It takes a special skill to read the room, correct?
Yeah, yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah. All right. So that's, and I'm glad you brought that out because sometimes people just think that because they can just talk, that's it. Public speaking, it's not a thing. Another example, somebody I was speaking to yesterday actually also told me was that he reminded me of something. It was just a reminder that because when when you're born, you listen to the people around you, right? And then as they speak, you pick up certain things and you grow in that environment and you begin to speak. So it just comes naturally for most people. And because they can talk, they think, okay, I'm good. I don't need to learn the art of communication. It's a misconception and it's hurting so many people, right?
I think so, yeah. I mean, you can see that around you by, even when I was getting the train into Toastmasters last night, I was looking around the train station and no one was talking to each other. No one was even maintaining any eye contact because everyone was on their phones. No one was no one lifted their eyes off their phone even to say hello. And that is the first part of the communication, I think, that, and I'm in danger of losing it as well, in terms of I'm attracted to these devices as well. It's like a moth flying towards a light bulb. That's what it feels like a lot of the time, because I think a lot of people are addicted to getting on that device. But that is the opposite of, communicating, speaking to people in the real world. I
Mm,
love Toastmasters, how you have the network break. So instead of everyone just going instantly onto your mobile phone and having a conversation,
true.
or looking up the internet, you have 15 minutes where you can have a chat to someone, and you might chat to that. You might, and the beauty of that is practice is, and I'm not very good at it. I think I'm getting better. I think I'm so used to just spending a lot of time online, whether that's meetings or answering emails. So getting in the real world's
Yeah.
important.
Yes. There was a time I know that I've been in a place where you've, okay, let me say that what we do as speakers is we also ask people to evaluate us. We ask people to say, watch what we say and how we say it, how we perform on stage, and also give us feedback. That's how we grow. And John, I've been in meetings and I've been in places where you have looked at people deliver speeches, and you've given them amazing evaluation and feedback on areas to improve. And I know that there was a time, I'm not sure if I was talking with you or I don't know where we were, but I think you mentioned it, that there was a time you took interest in learning how to evaluate people's speeches. Okay. So I want to ask you, what drew you to that? Why would you choose to grow your skills in terms of evaluating people's speeches and communication styles so that you can give them feedback? Why is that important?
Listening skills, I think, are so crucial, because I think we spend most of our life waiting to talk, where we're just waiting for our opportunity to talk as opposed to actually listen to the other person.
Mm.
So doing the evaluation is a mental exercise in listening skills and listening to the other person, and not just waiting for your opportunity to speak. So I think that was, so you not only does the person who gets the feedback and the evaluation benefit, but you benefit massively from doing it as well. Not only because you give a mini speech, but also because you practice those essential skills of listening. And it means, I mean, there's so much value in listening. Even bring it into the family dynamic. Sometimes we don't listen to each other, and that's how arguments happen. But I think even in the family environment, there's so much value to that evaluation. You can take it anywhere in your life, in your personal life, in your business life, or
Beautiful. So communication is not just about talking, it's also about listening. Now you decided to pay more attention to evaluation, because evaluating people's speeches, because it gives you the opportunity to listen more attentively. And that's a skill in developing the brain. That's really important. And I hope that anybody that's watching this also gets to understand that communication is a two-way thing. You must also learn to listen. And like you said, even in the family circle. I want to ask you this, Jonathan, as a speaker, somebody who engages in public speaking, you have mentioned that you've spoken, you address, you give briefings and all of that. Has there ever been a time when you're on stage, or maybe you are in any situation and you are supposed to deliver a speech and you go blank?
certainly when I first started, that I would try and remember a speech word for word, and
Mm,
that is the worst way to do speech writing, because just having a general idea of what you're going to speak about, it's good to practice. I never actually write down what I'm going to speak about. I'll write some general points, but I never write it word for word, because the danger is, for me anyway, and maybe this is applicable to other people, is you try and remember what is that next sentence. you know, and you get stuck. And that's what happened to me early on when I started delivering speeches was I would learn a script and then I would try and deliver that script word for word. And then that was really tricky because that's a lot of words in 7 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever you're speaking. So that's the way I've got over that from being stuck is not to learn the script, having the general ideas, make it my own. And actually, the first thing I do is I record myself over and over and over again. And then, so it's in my head as opposed to on a bit of paper. And I think that prevents you having that block when you're doing your public speaking.
Good. That reminds me too. I know that back in the day, when I have a speech a couple of weeks before, what I do is that you have the speech and then you have a rough idea of the speech. So one of the techniques I used to use back then was I record the speech immediately as it's flowing in my head. Now it may not be the finished product, but I just bring out my phone and I blow the thoughts in to my phone. I record and I keep it. And then when another thought gets in, I put it in. And then I listen to the thoughts again and again. And in my mind, in my head, it's like I'm mixing all my thoughts. So I'm mixing the thoughts and saying, okay, I think this should come in first. This should come in later. I remember a story. I record this story on my phone. I don't write the speeches. Yeah, there are times when I have written my speeches, but there are times when I just go like I'm explaining. It may not be the best for everyone, but the essence of sharing this is that we all have different styles that we learn, we put things together. The understanding the basics really helps you because I know that there is an introduction, there's a body of speech, there's a conclusion. Now, the introduction, do I want to start with a story? Do I want to start with an illustration? Do I want to give a gripping statistic sort of, and then in the body, what story will I tell? How do I transit from this story to this illustration? How do I apply the story? And how do I give it a bang, bang, bang closure or conclusion? All of that. Now, as you're listening, that's the way it happens. It happens. And as I'm listening, I'm telling myself, this doesn't click. This doesn't really click well, and all of that. That's how I have designed speeches like that countless times. And then with technology today, when you say what you want to say, you can actually turn your speech into scripts, into words, right? You have tools out there that can just take your audio script, your audio recording and turn it into a script. Then you can edit all of that, bring out the bullet points and say, okay, this is how I am going to flow. Public speaking, communication, it's like you're cooking something. It's interesting. It's like you're preparing a meal. And so you're saying, is that too much salt, too much pepper? Is it going to be too spicy? It takes a whole lot. But the moment if you derive joy, you want to go the extra mile to make these things happen. So I agree with you when you say you don't write everything down word for word because it boxes you into wanting to cram everything. And if you lose anything, if you miss your lines, boom, it's like you're stuck.
Yeah,
correct?
that's it. Yeah, correct.
So I'm going to ask you, if you've ever been stuck on stage, how did you get out of it?
I think I ended up missing out a chunk, and then I took a pause. I tried to think of where I was going. There was probably a few crutch words thrown in there as well, and then I missed out a chunk. And it's amazing that how many times you deliver a speech, and you think, and when you think back to it, you think, I missed out the best bit. I missed,
Yeah.
especially at the beginning when I was delivering speeches. I thought that the best bit of that speech I actually missed out. So I think that's the danger these days. Obviously, I'm still trying to prove there's loads of development still to be done, but I generally don't miss out chunks of the speech. I generally get in most of what I was planning to say. And then I look forward to my evaluation, see where I can go better next time.
Yeah, because you've really grown, you've improved. Aren't we all growing? But John, you mentioned something. You use expression, crutch words. For our viewers and probably people who do not know what that means, what does it mean when we say crutch words?
So crutch words are your as, your ems, your so's, your you know what's, and you throw them in. So instead of having a pause, you throw these little sounds in, these little they're almost like as it says, you call them a crutch because you rely on them to buy you time to think before you move on to what you've got to say. And when you hear the best public speakers, they don't use many of these. But one thing that we don't want to eliminate them completely because sometimes it can be almost part of the personality of the person. They use certain words, certain key phrases. And that's fine. But it's the overuse of them can be really distracting.
True, true. I like the last bit you said. We may not be able to eliminate them completely because it just might be part of the person, but reducing them to barest minimum really will be helpful. And I believe that the knowledge of crutch words and how dangerous it can be when they're overused, that's powerful because sometimes you begin to rely on certain words without knowing, without being conscious. But then the consciousness kicks in and you say, oh, it's like I've been using this word for too many times. So I need to begin to stop because you know the principle and you understand that using crutch words could actually hurt your speech. But if you are unaware of that, you do not have that knowledge and you've not learned it, you've not been taught, you don't know it, you can just go on and use the sounds, parts the sounds, and then use the words, and everything becomes really boring. I hear that more often than not when I listen to the radio. Now, I have nothing against broadcasters, really. I know sometimes when I'm driving, there are crutch words, expressions I use over and over, and probably I'm with my wife. I just say this is the one. They just again, I say two. I keep counting the words, the crutch words, and the sounds, and the crutch sounds. And by the time I go 30, 40, in a space of 5 minutes, you've used this word 30 times, or this sound, this expression 30 times. Now it hurts me because I lose interest in what you're saying, even if I want to stay there, but it's like a punch. It like punches, it keeps going boom, 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 and waters down the importance of it. So I hope that whoever watches this will probably go back and say, maybe it's time for me to research what crutch words are and probably begin to pay attention to the way I speak. You mentioned something again when I asked you the question, what you do when you get stuck on stage. And you said something that pause has helped you. And I know that you pause a lot more now because you're more confident. What's the power of, how powerful are pauses when used appropriately in speeches? You want to elaborate on that?
Pauses are wonderful. I think they
Mm-hmm.
give you a time to reflect on what the people have said. Sometimes someone delivers a really powerful line but doesn't pause, and then you lose the impact of what they've just said. So if you think about Martin Luther King or another great public speaker, then he left big pauses in between what he said in his speeches. And then there's a guy actually in Toastmasters right now who takes the pause to extreme levels. In fact, just last night but I actually think it is quite amazing because people are thinking, has he lost his way? but then you see his face and you know he's confident, and he's just giving you time to, he's giving himself time to think, but he's giving you time to think as well. So,
True.
in fact, I actually think the more I listen to this particular public speaker, the more I enjoy his the way that he delivers things. I think it's pausing is just one of the magic ingredients of public speaking.
Beautiful. So what do you think? Why do you think people don't pause? Just for people, so that we can learn something. Why do you think people don't pause when they talk, when they deliver speeches, or even when they communicate every day?
I think for speeches, I think it's because you've remembered your speech and you're just trying to get through it. So you just, instead of taking a pause and thinking about your delivery, you're just trying to get through the actual speech, and you don't really think about the audience. I think when you start thinking about the audience, that's when you start pausing. And then the length of your pauses as you get better at public speaking increases. I'm probably halfway through that journey in terms of doing pauses, but I think as I get better over the next few years, I want to see those pauses increasing. And then you can probably actually cut out a lot of the words in your speech. But I think in general conversation, again, this is why we don't pause, because we think if we pause, the other person might start speaking. And that means you're not speaking anymore. And everyone wants to do the speaking as opposed to the listening. So I think and that's not what the way it should be. It should be the other way around. 2 ears, one mouth, as they say. So I think, yeah, the pause. We need to really think about the pause as much as possible.
Correct. I'm also trying to search myself when you say you are still also growing, because I know that I could be a pretty much fast speaker. I could be a pretty much dynamic, lively speaker, and I just go boom, 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 boom. And there are times when on stage, as I just go, and then you get into that sphere, that space, and you were just vibrating and accelerating. This tiny little voice just comes and tells you, breathe. Just breathe, breathe. And what I do, I pause and I move from one side of the stage to another, while maintaining eye contact and looking at the audience, picking up people one by one and then looking at them. It's like saying, I'm pausing to let you think. I'm pausing to let you take this in. And it's so powerful, because if you maintain the pause at an appropriate length, you will see in the eyes of people when they say, okay, what next? Okay. Now, another thing I've also learned is that some people are afraid to pause. You mentioned that when you said, if I pause, someone else to talk. Well, in public speaking, you're talking to an audience. When you pause, it's like you're giving power to the audience. And some speakers don't like to let go of the power. I'm on stage, I'm firing, I need to nail this through. But I think we're learning in public speaking that you shouldn't be afraid to let go of the power, because it's a two-way thing. You're saying, okay, take the power this time for a moment. And I trust that when I need it, when I want it, you give it back. And by the time I start speaking, they are open up and say, yeah, take it, go ahead. But that space, that quiet can be uncomfortable. That silence could be uncomfortable for many speakers, especially new speakers. So I'm hoping that our audience out there would go back and say, okay, I need to learn to pause. You just speak different aspects of public speaking. You can't learn everything in one day. You can decide to say, I want to learn how to pause and pace my speech. And that will really be powerful for most people. It could just be the change, you know.
No, I think you're right. Definitely.
Mm. That's beautiful, very powerful point you brought on point. You brought on board. So, what advice would you give to people who are seeking to improve themselves as public speakers? Lots of people out there. There are people, just to give you an example, there are people like you who are managers and they've got reports to give. And the reports they have are laden with so much message for their senior management team. But the way they deliver the report with PowerPoints, so much on the PowerPoint, and just everybody just loses interest. But it's a report that could change things. But the message is lost because of the way you deliver it. There are salespeople, there are parents, there are children. For some reason, they are unable to pass the message across. What advice would you give to people that would love to develop their communication skills?
Join Toastmasters. I think if you've got the time, if you can join Toastmasters, if you stay somewhere there's not a Toastmasters club, then find a coach, a mentor, deliver speeches
Mm.
to your family, do something. But I think you need to practice. There's nothing you could go into Amazon and you could buy yourself 10 books on public speaking, but it won't make you a good public speaker. In fact, you won't even start getting. I think you might pick up some ideas, but until you actually start practicing it, start getting on this floor, start getting on stage and practicing, then there's no substitute for that. So you need to if you can find a Toastmasters club, then join up. And if you look at some books, I think it's actually in a lot of these sort of self-development books, Toastmasters is actually mentioned quite a lot in these books, going
True,
back to
true.
go back to the 60s, go back to even the 1930s. People are talking about Toastmasters. So it just shows you that this is an organization that is is successful to such a massive degree. Its longevity of 100 years is no freak accident. The reason it's still going is because people get a massive benefit, not only to their personal life, but their professional life and anything that they do.
Beautiful. Les Brown talks about Toastmasters. John Maxwell, Roddy Gilbert, Chris Robinson, name them. Quite a number of people, powerful public speakers, talk about Toastmasters. And I agree with you completely. And if you can't find a Toastmasters club, find a coach or a mentor. Public speaking is like driving. You cannot learn how to drive by reading books. You've got to get behind the steering. You've got to get scared, right?
Uh-huh.
Struggling between changing the gear and then selecting your gears and holding your steering, looking at the screen, operating your clutch, all the pedals. You have to get through that point of being confused, and then gradually confidence builds in, and that's how public speaking is. You've got to get that through that point where you're scared, but you do it anyway. So practicing is key. One of the things I just remembered something. I remember talking to a group of people who were and one of the concerns they have is being scared on stage, being afraid to get on stage. And so I watched them. I figured that 70% of them, the moment they get on the stage and there's a lectern, they go around the lectern, they go behind the lectern and they hold the lectern. And so what I told them was, because you're scared, the moment you hold the lectern, you find it hard to let go because it becomes a crutch, something you want to lean on. And so practice not to touch the lectern. You get on stage. If you can move around without touching the lectern, because your mind, your body will be telling you, touch it, just hold it. And I figured I've watched lots of people. The moment they hold the lectern, they stay there. Okay, they stay stuck. So the audience loses from the gesticulation and the movement around the stage that they would have benefited from. But it takes practice. Again, and the reason I brought this example is because for this particular group of people, it took a while for some of them to let go of the lectern. Even after the guidance and everything, they get on stage and they hold the lectern because it's ingrained. I want to hold something. I want to stay behind something. You get, you see some people where they get on stage and they clasp their hand. And the key thing is to get them to free their hands and use their hands mostly. They get on stage and they clasp their hands. So it takes practice again and again to speak, to practice this skill, and then move to the next skill, and then move on to the next skill. And it's easier to develop those skills within a community.
100%. You need to practice. I can't agree with you more.
And it's easier when you're doing this within a community. That's why I love the bit when you said join Toastmasters or find a coach so that you'll have an accountability partner. John, I want to ask you, professional life, personal interests, obligations. How do you balance all of that? And how do your communication skills help you?
So you ask me about how I balance what the working.
Yes, work life, family, personal obligations.
I don't know. I mean, it's a constant battle, I think, for everyone, isn't it? In terms of if you're at Toastmasters, then you're neglecting your family for that night. So I think, or if I'm, I do find that this is these days when your kids are young or you're youngish, they're still living at home. These are precious times, so you don't want to be out of the house too often. That's my personal opinion. You want to be there for them. So I would say that if I didn't have the kids, then I'd probably have pushed really hard in my career, and I could have been, I could have been in a much higher promoted position. But to be quite honest, I think that I'm quite happy with my lot in terms of I don't really have expensive taste, so then I can concentrate more on the family. You're trying to find that balance. There is a balance there to be had. I keep thinking about. I do a journal at night about what I'm grateful for. I often write about my family. So I think that if you think about what's important, then that helps you to get that balance.
Beautiful. John, if you were to have dinner today with three public speakers or leaders, I'd rather say public speakers, dead or alive, who would you love to have dinner with? Now, this is just a fun bit.
Right. Okay. So this dinner is going to be fantastic because you've already mentioned his name. I'm going to have Les Brown on
Okay.
one side, and his voice is so powerful. He's going to motivate us. I'm going to have Jim Rohn,
Okay.
who's another fantastic guy. But what I do think about one thing I love a lot about what Jim Rohn does. But one thing, he's a bit obsessed about money, and so is Les Brown. They just talk about how to make money. Well, I've got a very much different my aim in life is to do the right thing. The most important thing for me is to do the right thing. So I'm going to have an argument with them about what's important in life and this dinner table. And the last person that I'm going to have is George Galloway, not because I agree
Okay.
with his politics, but because he is absolute. And the only reason he's actually a successful politician is because he's so good at public speaking. And if you've seen him recently, when he got elected in the by-election, he called Labour and Conservatives two cheeks of the same backside. And he's got these little things that he has these phrases that he uses. So I'd be surrounded myself with George Galloway, Jim Rohn, and Les Brown. What a table!
Oh, what a table! I'm just already imagining that. John, it's been wonderful talking to you and gleaning from your insight and wisdom. We hope that our viewers will take what they think, depending on who's watching, what's relevant to them, and would aim towards becoming better public speakers, becoming better communicators, becoming better influencers, and becoming better leaders, husbands, wives, parents, and even children, because of the way they're able to communicate effectively so that the message is not lost along the line. Thank you so much for being on the show. And we do hope that we'll be able to do this again.
Fantastic. Thanks very much. I
All
enjoyed it.
right.
Enjoyed the chat.
Yes. Thank you very much. So